Hi everyone, I'm Nick.
And I'm Lisa.
And you're listening to It Takes Two, the podcast where two movies take two people with the same plot and premise, and I've screwed this up. Same plot or premise.
We're doing a Disney Remakes episode.
Yeah, that's Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, everything is topsy-turvy.
It is indeed.
So we're covering off the 1951 Alice in Wonderland, the Disney animated feature, and the 2010 Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland.
So in this episode there'll be both spoilers, and we're going to try and keep it as child-friendly, even though it is Alice in Wonderland. There's some things that people like, the genuine, like, what would you call it? The zeitgeist of like pop culture that is absorbed from everything from the Matrix to like songs in the 60s and 70s. Like, there's so many references to Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. It's a whole other beast, I feel like.
Yeah.
But we're gonna primarily focus on these movies rather than other adaptations and the book and the everything, as much as possible.
Yeah.
I think.
Where do you want to start? Because I know where I want to start.
Well, spoiler alert: we both hated the remake.
Oh my gosh! What an awful movie! Just from everything about it was awful. The acting was subpar for like the names they put in it. The character design was terrible.
Yeah, I will say I thought that Mia Wasikowska looked really good most of the time. Sadly, I cannot say the same for literally anyone else in the entire movie. It's like they tried to make people look as bad as possible.
It was just like someone just gave Tim Burton a pile of money and was just like, make Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, Disney.
Yeah.
That's literally what Disney did.
Yeah. And it shows, because like everything about it was just annoying. I didn't like looking at Johnny Depp.
No.
I didn't like looking at Helena Bonham Carter.
No.
Crispin Glover was creepier than normal, which is a stretch for Crispin Glover.
I particularly didn't like looking at the guy from Little Britain.
Oh yeah, the Tweedledee Tweedledum thing was just
very upsetting to look at.
Horrible.
Yeah, the production design, character design, costume, etc., all really not very good.
And the thing about Alice in Wonderland, it is from the time, but from the original movie, it is very bright. Every color is highly saturated, yes. And it has a certain tone of whimsy. It has a certain tone of wonder, even though what is happening on screen is not normal. Because it is so well painted, it sort of has an air of childhood. Because it turns out as you get older, you get sun damage on your eyes and you can't see color as well. And it really, the Tim Burton version is just so dark.
It's really upsettingly dark. That was kind of one of my first notes about it, I think. That the original 1951 Alice in Wonderland is so colorful. Just every moment of it is just like proper, like Technicolor, like beautifully, presumably at the time hand painted, cells and backgrounds and things, and it's just stunning to look at. And it's all very much about like the imagination of a child and like all the different weird things that go on in her head, and and then in the remake it was like they wanted to make a gritty, dark version of it, and they did it by making it literally dark.
Yeah.
So that they just desaturated it. Nothing is colorful. Everything is really bleak. It's really, I don't even think it should count as a child's movie. I think it is still like suitable for children. It's just not, there's no fun to it.
The thing that I found interesting right from the get-go with the Tim Burton version is it is obviously filmed on like a blue screen. And most of the time the characters are interacting, they're probably I don't even think they did it with makeup. There's no way you would have... Because his eyes are too big.
Yeah.
Like, the costume design you'd think would be awesome, but it's not. Everything looks crummy. Everything just felt crummy.
Yeah.
It felt like high budget, low budget.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's like, obviously it had money thrown at it, but it didn't feel like a good high budget movie.
No.
Like, I've seen much better things made with much lower budgets.
I think majority of the money went towards the awful CGI.
And the big names.
Yeah. You could have gotten away with making a more faithful adaptation with... But it's just Tim Burton. Tim Burton just hires his wife and Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I mean, also, Tim Burton didn't want to make a faithful adaptation.
Yeah. It's not the person you employ to make a faithful adaptation.
Yeah.
You don't employ people who want to do their own thing.
I mean, we've done Planet of the Apes on here.
That's true.
And again, it's like a weird almost sequel.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, don't worry, I'll remake this, and then makes like a weird sequel. And it's like, no, hang on, I thought this was a remake. Because in this, Alice is 19 instead of being like 8 or however old she is in the original.
And spoilers, it's a sequel.
Yeah. But then...
Sort of.
Yeah, but it's a sequel to a movie that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because it's not a sequel to the original, and it's not a sequel to any other adaptation. It's not even a faithful sequel to the actual book.
Yeah.
He's made up a story and then didn't even make that movie. He made a sequel to a movie he made up in his head that no one's seen.
It's like a conversation with me.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah, I don't know. I will say I did write a series of recommendations for the children listening to this and the adults with children listening to this for what they should watch instead of Alice in Wonderland 2010.
Go on then.
So I had a list of, I was like breaking down what I thought were like people might be looking for when they go for this movie, right? Yeah. And then going, here's something that does it better. So the first one was, if you want a dark children's movie that has real stakes and actual heroism in it, Secret of Nim. Absolutely. I mean, that is a children's movie, but it's properly dark. You actually care about the characters and what's going on, and it's really well made. If you're looking for that particular late 2000s darker fantasy aesthetics, but without losing the joy and whimsy of the original Alice in Wonderland, Stardust.
Yeah.
I mean, 100. I felt like there was moments in this where I was like, they're trying to redo Stardust, but badly. They haven't captured whatever they captured making Stardust that made it, like, magical. If you specifically want a movie about a young woman in peril facing off against a fantastical tyrant, Labyrinth is your movie. If you want to go even more dark, you could go Pan's Labyrinth, but I wouldn't necessarily watch that with your child. I said, if you're looking for a darker movie about a child from the guy who brought you Nightmare Before Christmas, you're not thinking of Tim Burton, you're thinking of Henry Selick, the actual director of Nightmare Before Christmas, and you should watch Coraline. Yeah. If you want a realistic twist on fairy tales that's still colourful and sweet, and Enchanted. Yep. If you specifically want a film about a girl in a strange world full of wonder and danger and navigating that by herself, Spirited Away. Yeah. And lastly, if you really want the feel of Alice in Wonderland, watch the animated film. There's no reason to watch the 2010 horrible remake. There were so many good movies out there that have done a really good job of all the things that Tim Burton tried and failed in this movie.
It's just very bizarre.
It is.
It's the movie kind of like sets it up as like this epic saga, but like the whole thing about epic sagas are they should be based on like original content, because you the thing is that it was just like throwing everything at the wall and seeing what stuck.
Yeah, because they also did like a whole kind of almost like Regency proposal thing that she like goes to a party in a manor house. You know, it's like they're trying to do like Pride and Prejudice stuff.
Yeah.
And then they're like, but it's Alice in Wonderland, and 10 years ago she was in Wonderland and she doesn't remember it, and she's destined to defeat the Jabberwocky.
Yeah. Was she though?
No, it's all bizarre. The only sad thing about the Jabberwocky is that it was Christopher Lee, and she cut off his tongue 2 seconds into him talking.
Yeah.
What a waste of Christopher Lee's talents.
Have you read the book?
I have read... Here's the thing, is that it's 2 books, really.
Yeah.
Because it's Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. And I have read at least one of those. But I can't remember which of them I've read, or if I read both. So, maybe. I think I might have read Through the Looking Glass, because I remember, like, the chess sets and stuff, which I think was Through the Looking Glass, not Alice in Wonderland, right?
Yeah, because it definitely feels like, from what I know about the difference between the 2 books, it definitely feels like they made Alice Through the Looking Glass as Alice in Wonderland.
Which of them? The original or the remake?
The remake.
So both movies take elements from both books.
Yes.
But the Tim Burton one, they did a sequel, which is Through the Looking Glass.
How?
So I really don't know. I haven't seen it, and having watched this movie, I'm like, how have you made Through the Looking Glass if this is what you've done with Alice in Wonderland?
So what you're saying is we should watch the other
I really
movie.
don't want to.
I think the worst, other than looking at the screen, was the dialogue felt... You know the criticism that was thrown toward the prequel series of Star Wars, and how the lines feel very wooden and the performances are terrible?
Yeah.
That is the director's fault.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know for a fact the actors that were portrayed on screen can act.
Yes.
The problem is that what they were told to do was awful.
This is also the problem with Twilight, from my understanding. I haven't watched Twilight, but I've seen clips, and it does make it seem like Kristen Stewart can't act. But essentially the character was written as the most bland person in the world, and then they would direct her to be super bland.
Yeah, she's supposed to be the every girl.
Yeah, but every girl with absolutely no personality.
Yeah, the whole without getting into Twilight, that's the way the book was written.
Yeah.
The stories.
She's supposed to be Mormon every girl.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah.
But Kristen Stewart can act, and I've seen her do fantastic jobs in other movies. But she's had this stigma following her for literal decades at this point, based on one character she played.
Yeah, but that is a very hard thing to do when you get famous from one role. Like, I'm sure the cast of Harry Potter also had the same issue. The other cast members from Twilight series also had the same problem.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Pattinson is another good example.
Yeah, he had to do a bunch of weird movies.
Yeah, well, so did Daniel Radcliffe, speaking of Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's not a...
Yeah, anything where especially when you're young and you're cast in a series.
Yeah.
And that becomes like, what? I mean, if you look at the Stranger Things kids, like, they're currently in that zone right now, trying to break out and be serious actors.
Except Millie Bobby Brown.
She's the one who's most been trying to do that. She's been in,
She's been doing awful
the Sherlock
movies.
Holmes things.
Those
like
movies are awful.
But she's been trying to break out and do serious, like, other roles that aren't what she's doing. Joe Keery seems to do really unhinged roles, from what I've seen. Yeah. But anyway, yes, if you're directed in a series of movies by a bad director, it's going to reflect on how people view you as an actor. Yeah.
It's also the dialogue was awful.
Yeah. It's Tim Burton. What do you expect?
Yeah. I don't know. It was just so weird. Like, it is a weird story.
Yes.
Like, Alice in Wonderland is a weird story. But how do you make that story that's weird and is now so ingrained in pop culture, most people know things about it without even, like, sitting down and watching it. How do you turn that and make it into, like, this weird sort of hero's arc where you don't care?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the thing, is that how do you take this color, like, huge ensemble cast in the original movie, and I guess in the book
and source material as well.
Yeah, but the original movie, the 1951 movie, takes characters from Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass, and like other poems by Lewis Carroll, and you have this like huge cast of characters who, a lot of which are very well known. You know, the Cheshire Cat, White Rabbit, the March Hare, the Mad Hatter, the Queen of Hearts. You know, there's so many well-known characters, and then that people already are interested in and care about. Like, people have tattoos of these characters. People have been in love with Alice in Wonderland for decades, and then you make a really boring movie where you don't care about any of the characters. I really couldn't have cared what happened to, like, Tweedledum Tweedledee. The Mad Hatter, they tried to give him, like, a whole story arc. No, he's great because he's literally gone mad because he's been just using so much mercury that he's lost his mind.
Yeah.
And he just throws tea parties all the time.
Yeah.
I don't need him to have a dark backstory and be chained to a desk to make hats.
And then fight some sort of headhunter with a sword.
And I don't need him to be changing into multiple different bad accents every time you see him.
Yeah. That was also terrible.
Yeah.
Direction.
Yeah. And acting.
Yeah.
Call it what it is. It's bad acting.
Yeah, but you don't know...
The man played Jack Sparrow for too long, and he slipped into Jack Sparrow too often as the Mad Hatter.
Yeah. And he was doing a weird Scottish accent as well at some points.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. The man can act, but he's so rich and famous he chooses not to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he's lost it.
Yeah.
And I would say the same about Burton. Because I was just thinking that, like, I liked 80s, early 90s Tim Burton movies. And then he's...
Yeah, because they were campy and fun.
And now he's become a caricature of himself. He no longer makes good, fun movies.
Yeah.
He makes the movie that he thinks some other version of Tim Burton would make. He's like, this is what people think of as Tim Burton, so I must Tim Burton this Tim Burton movie.
Yeah. How many Tim Burtons can you Burton before you Tim?
Crazy. Just go back, like, he was making good movies at one point in time. I mean, I love Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
For an example. I think that's a great movie.
Yeah, because it sort of fits his narrative of that weird tuberculosis, black and white. Like, is Sweeney Todd his?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sweeney Todd I like.
Yeah, and Sweeney Todd was him picking source material that suited his style also.
Yeah, not getting source material and trying to make it his thing.
Yeah. Alice in Wonderland, I guess that the thought was, you know, it's kind of zany and whatever, but it just didn't fit the Tim Burton aesthetic, especially Tim Burton after he's gone several Tim Burtons deep aesthetic. Yeah. It's just not good. He didn't make a good movie.
Yeah.
And it's not a remake.
No. It's
just, and it's listed as a remake. It's a Disney live action remake. It's not. It's a whole other thing. This is Tim Burton's fan fiction of Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. Fan fiction would make it seem like he cared.
Yeah, I was going to say, his faux fiction.
Yeah. It's just to look at the movie was awful.
Yeah.
It was a bad day to have eyes.
And I will say, being completely transparent here, I'm not a huge fan of the 1951 Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
But at least they made a decent movie. And it's fun, and it's whimsical, and it's joyful. And it's, you know, it's got that kind of, you know, the kind of pretentious child who doesn't want to pay attention to her schoolwork and wants to stay, you know, it's almost like Wendy again. Wants to stay a child by dreaming up all these fantastical ideas. And then they just ruined it.
100%. There is a lot of charm to the original.
Yeah.
As we mentioned earlier, the colour of it is beautiful. What happens, like, so much is influencing so much more culture that happened later on. Obviously, that movie's not just Alice in Wonderland as well. It's got parts of Through the Looking Glass in it as well.
It's got, they've got the Cheshire Cat quoting the Jabberwocky poem.
Yeah.
And there's other, like the Walrus and the Carpenter.
Yeah.
Is another poem that just gets thrown in there.
Which is a very weird analogy, depending on how you look at it. You're just like looking at me with a face.
It's very Pied Piper.
Yeah.
And kind of horrific.
Yeah.
Because it was about a walrus and a carpenter convincing some oyster children to follow them, and then they ate them. Yeah,
the tone I've heard is organized religion. Because one of the characters is a carpenter.
Right, okay.
Yeah. There's like Tweedledee, Tweedledum, the character design, like all the character design in the original is great. Because it is animated, you get away with the uncanny valley sort of images that is portrayed, because Alice is, when she's not growing humongous or shrinking tiny, she is a human, and all the other characters are humanoid, but they're not like human. When you have anthropomorphic characters, they're also sort of like human-y, but not really. But they tried doing that in the Tim Burton one, and it's just like, I don't know what part of Christian Glover was real and what was CGI. Because he walked so bizarrely that I feel like it was only his head.
That was real?
That was real, and the rest of it was CG.
Oh.
Because, like, when they zoomed up on his, like, clothing, his clothing looked CG. And I feel like he was just, like, went into makeup, had the fake scar, had the heart thing, got his hair done, and was just wearing, like, a blue suit the entire time.
That wouldn't surprise me. The only piece of trivia I've taken down for the 2010 Alice in Wonderland is that all of the voice actors and actresses recorded all their lines in one day.
Yeah, that's probably why the takes are so awful.
Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if they also just had Crispin Glover head on a pole for a day, reciting all his lines, and then went, okay, cool, we'll just make a body for you.
Yeah.
It's really weird. The other thing is that you mentioned Alice getting large and small or whatever. In the original, that's used for it's used for comedic effect, but it's also, it actually advances the story, and there's cool things that happen because of it. Like, it's, vital to how she interacts with the world. Like the getting through the door and then getting big to get the key for the door, shrinking down into the little bottle and then going in her own tears, where she gets stuck in the house and she's like, arms and legs out of the house. They think she's a monster. All of that stuff is really interesting. And then in the remake, she just gets big, and then everyone's like, oh, you're big, so you're cool, I guess. And then she's just intimidates people by being big. And then when she goes back to normal size, they're like, oh, wait, it's Alice.
Yeah. Because apparently dimensions change your appearance.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Especially because the Red Queen, in both these movies, they've amalgamated the villains of the two books. Because the villains are the Red Queen and the Queen of Hearts. In the 1951 movie, it's the Queen of Hearts, but she has elements of the Red Queen's personality.
Yeah.
In the 2010 one, she's called the Red Queen, but she's clearly the Queen of Hearts.
Yeah.
So it's very strange. But she's obsessed with... Oh no, what I was going to say is she sees a drawing of Alice and is like, I would know that person anywhere, that's Alice. And then she sees Alice in person and is like, oh, if you're large, you're welcome here.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you literally said like 5 minutes ago that you would recognize Alice anywhere. And then she's not even remotely disguised. In fact, she was fully naked.
Yeah.
Because the clothes don't grow with her in the remake. They don't grow and shrink with her. What they do at the beginning, right at the beginning, they shrink and grow with her.
Yeah.
But then every other time she shrinks or grows, her clothes don't shrink or grow with her. So she has to like make new clothes or get new clothes.
Yeah.
And so she grows big and bursts out of her tiny person clothes, I guess. And then they're just like, oh, you're large, and that's fine. Because I have a large head. Something that is not, I believe, in either of the books.
No. Also, like, the weird henchmen with the, like, everything faked on them.
Yeah, because the Queen cuts off everyone's head if they don't have large body parts. So they all have, like, fake noses and things.
Such a weird, like... Ah, Tim. Where did you go wrong, buddy?
Like I said, go back to the beginning. There's a whole list of movies that you and your child should watch instead of this one.
I'm surprised you didn't put Howl's Moving Castle on there.
Howl's Moving Castle is great. I think, because that's also... I mean, we did that with Stardust on here.
Yeah.
They both have that kind of whimsy to them. I feel like probably the reason it didn't go on here is because it's much more whimsical. It's much more wholesome than this Alice in Wonderland.
Mm.
And I feel like I was trying to go for, you know, if you want an edgier version of Alice in Wonderland, here's some better movies that do that this way. You know, if you want to have this, like, real perils and darkness and stuff. Howl's Moving Castle, obviously, is also a great movie. I did think about, like, My Neighbor Totoro as well. But again, that's just very wholesome.
If you like movies about women fulfilling prophecies that are destined, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Because that's literally the whole story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just watch a Ghibli film.
Yeah.
Forget these Disney live-action
remakes.
Just
forget Tim Burton exists.
Forget Disney live-action remakes. Watch some Studio Ghibli films.
Yeah.
That's what you gotta do. They're all great. Have there been any duds? I don't know. I didn't particularly like The Wind Rises, which is about tuberculosis.
I thought it was about World War II.
It's about a guy's wife dying of tuberculosis.
I thought it was about him designing the Zero, the plane.
I think it's both those things.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it.
It seems to be, from my memory, it's primarily about his wife dying.
I found Tale of Earthsea.
I liked that, but it was very much... That was based on a fantasy series. A pre-existing one.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of... I really like things that... I like some that aren't big ones as well. Like, I really like From Up on Poppy Hill.
Yeah.
I really like that one. Whisper of the Heart is one of my favorites, which is just super wholesome.
Yeah. Cat Returns.
Yeah. Cat Returns. Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yeah.
Great.
I think one of my favourites that no one remembers is Laputa Castle in the Sky.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is just...
That was one of the first ones I saw, I think. Because it was on... There was a TV station called Film 4, and they did a Studio Ghibli... Or I think it was particularly a Hayao Miyazaki marathon one time when I was down in Wexford. So I was like, cool, I'll watch these. So I watched like Lupin the Third and Laputa, Castle of the Sky. Is it Count of Cagliostro?
That sounds familiar.
Is that? I can't remember. Or is that the Lupin the Third movie? That might be it might be two titles for the same movie. But like I watched a whole bunch of Studio Ghibli films that I hadn't seen before at that point. Because I think at that point I had only seen Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Those are the big three.
And the first one I saw in cinema was From Up on Poppy Hill, which was in Ireland for a Japanese film festival.
Makes sense.
And I really, really enjoyed that.
Good movie.
Anyway, they're all great.
You should watch those.
They are all better than this. Secret of Nim is genuinely my top suggestion, I feel like. Because it is a super dark children's movie. Because this is what I was thinking about when I decided to write that list, was that, like... I knew we were going to talk about how they took this bright and colourful and whimsical movie and turned it into something dark. And I didn't want to imply...
And terrible CG.
Yeah, I didn't want to imply that children shouldn't be watching dark movies. I think it's, like, actually important for children to watch dark movies. And I watched a lot of kind of dark movies growing up that were suitable for children.
Yeah.
I mean, you could watch Watership Down, but I don't know that I even would call it suitable for children. But Secret of Nim was, like, really, I feel like, really defining. That, you know, you watch this movie and you don't ever know or feel like you know that the protagonist is going to succeed in what she's doing.
Yeah.
You have so much sympathy for her and empathy, and there are so many high stakes in it, and it's very much about this one person saying, or mouse saying, you know, I don't have another option, I need to do this. This is how I save my family, this is what needs to happen, otherwise there's nothing I can do. And about that kind of perseverance in the face of, like, extreme darkness. And then I watched have you seen the sequel? I watched The Secret of Nim 2 a few times. That's also very dark. But they're really good movies. Particularly the first one. And it is like a dark movie, both visually dark and thematically dark. That I think is actually done really well, and in a way that actually is really good at teaching children about life, which this movie is not. No. So they don't, because this was my thought was, if you're going to make a children's movie that is dark, there has to be a reason for it.
Yeah. Like,
if you're just making it dark for the sake of making it dark, what's the point? What's the lesson? What is the, like... There's no moral to it, you know? It's not like a grim fairy tale where they had all these, like, morals to the story. Like, you have to learn from it, and that's why these bad things happen because of these reasons, and that's why, you know, you need to learn these morals from it. It doesn't have any of that.
No.
It's just someone going into this place and going, I think you've mixed me up with someone else, but I don't believe any of this is real, so I'll just hang around anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the whole movie. She regularly is like, well, I guess I'll just do this because it's a dream and it doesn't matter. Whereas, like...
That's pretty much the whole movie.
Yeah, literally every time Alice is confronted with something scary or dark or, you know, she just goes, I guess it doesn't matter anyway, so whatever.
Yeah. There are no stakes in the movie.
Yeah.
It's...
And there's never a moment where she goes like, oh no, this is real.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I don't do this, I'm going to die, or these people are going to die, or, you know, my life is, you know, in peril, I'll never get back to home, etc. It's just like, yeah, I guess I'll do it, so. You know?
I guess I'll save
Alright, I guess I'll kill the Jabberwocky, you know?
But, like, the whole thing was that wasn't a threat. If they just stayed away from the Red Queen the entire movie, everything would have been fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the people would still have been, like, enslaved and stuff.
Were they? They seemed pretty free to me.
The dogs were.
Okay. Just a singular family of dogs. An entire kingdom of a lady telling people to cut other people's heads off. And the only people that survived the epic war were a family of dogs.
Anyway, yeah, so that was why I thought of that list, and particularly why Secret of Nim was the first one to come to mind. But even, like, other ones I had on there, like Labyrinth, there's very much real stakes in there.
I love Labyrinth.
Yeah. And Labyrinth is very dreamlike.
Yeah.
And you don't know, is it a dream, is it reality, which is what the original Alice in Wonderland goes for, is that, like, it seems real, but then she wakes up. Whereas in this one, she's like, it's a dream, I guess. And then she, like, crawled out of a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? I guess it wasn't a dream? Because she's, like, all cut up and stuff. And everyone is shocked.
Everything about that beginning, like, the real world stuff was just so stupid.
Yeah, I also didn't like... So this really... One thing that really annoyed me about it is that in the beginning, Alice's family is trying to convince her to marry this guy. And then her sister is like, you know, you can be happy like me. And she finds her sister's husband cheating on her.
Yeah.
At this engagement party. And then at the end of the movie, she's like, she's, supposed to have learned all these lessons. And what she does is she says to him, "You're lucky to be married to my sister."
Yeah.
There's no telling the sister about the affair. There's no telling him, getting him to admit it. He doesn't have any consequences to his actions. And she didn't learn anything in her time in Wonderland that made her stand up for her sister or stand up for the truth or whatever you would expect her to do. She's just like, okay, I guess I'll leave my sister married to this guy who was literally two feet away from her having an affair.
I'm gonna go sell tea to the Chinese. That's what she did with her life.
Alice?
Yeah. Isn't it the whole point of the ending? She meets up with
the
guy who used to be her dad's business partner.
Yeah, she just takes over her dad's business.
Oh,
that's
you should have traded
learned
with China. And he's like, no one's ever thought of that before.
So the whole thing
no British person has ever thought about trading with China. I'm going to make you my apprentice. Here's your own ship. See you later, kid.
Yeah, I guess what she learns from Wonderland is that she should run her father's business at age 19 with no business experience.
Well, killing a giant dragon...
That's not business experience. And it was a Jabberwocky.
What is a Jabberwocky?
I don't know. C.S. Lewis... No, hang on. Lewis Carroll invented it. I'm mixing up my authors. Lewis Carroll invented it. C.S. Lewis had nothing to do with it. He had a different white queen.
Yeah.
In Narnia.
Yeah. That's what it feels like.
It feels like they were trying to make a Narnia movie?
It feels like they were trying to, run on the coattails of the Narnia saga.
Yeah,
and
possibly.
Just be like, we can make this.
I'll make Dark Narnia, is what Tim Burton said. And they said, Narnia is not a Disney property. And went, Dark Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. It's probably the pitch, eh? He just, walked into the room with a bunch of Narnia
He literally
stuff.
just walked and went, I'll make Dark Narnia.
Yeah.
They were like, we don't have the rights for that, bro. You can't do that. And he's like, all right, what's on your remakes list?
Yeah.
I know you're remaking everything. What's on your remakes list? Let me find one. Alice in Wonderland. That's Narnia-ish.
Yeah.
There's a white queen.
Narnia adjacent.
Yeah. Apparently Anne Hathaway they wanted to cast her as Alice. And she was like, no, I've played characters like that before and I don't want to. But, she would have been way too old.
She played a fantastic character in the movie. Because totally her acting and costume and everything about her was totally worth her being signed onto it.
It was really weird.
I don't know what was worse. Her, accent or her hand placement.
Yeah, she did something weird with her hands the whole time. And I don't know what she was trying for.
It was like she was suffering from tuberculosis.
Okay, we've talked about tuberculosis too much on this episode. Children, if you're listening, tuberculosis is a really bad disease that made people lose lots of weight and then look really sick and then they normally died from it. Currently, it's still happening in some parts of the world, but it's getting less and less. It used to be everywhere. You probably will never ever get it because of vaccines.
Vaccines good, tuberculosis bad.
Yes. Vaccines stop you from getting tuberculosis and other bad diseases that made people very sick a long time ago.
Yes. But anyway.
But when the book was written, I think people were still getting tuberculosis a lot.
Yeah.
So there is, I guess, some reflection of that in these movies.
It's like the whole Tim Burton shtick.
Yes.
Yeah. All of his characters have it. Anne Hathaway's performance was also terrible.
Yeah.
Just a weird little goblin hands.
Everyone's performance is terrible.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone had a good performance. I think Mia Wasikowska was trying, but I don't think she was well directed. No. And I don't think she had good dialogue to deliver.
Or, I think the worst is, when you walk in... Because it must be hard, because, with the Hobbit trilogy, there was a lot of this as well because they didn't get the time to prep like they did for The Lord of the Rings with building physical sets and things.
Yeah.
It must be difficult to do that. And I feel a lot for, like, the Marvel movies as well. Because you're just, like, walking on a blue screen while wearing a silly costume to talk to a tennis ball. And your director's just like, yeah, whatever, I was just too busy counting my residuals from everything else I've ever done. Next scene.
Yeah.
And it must be, like, disheartening. But I guess it's just modern movie making where no one's actually there anymore.
Yeah, I think... I'm trying to see if I can find it. But I think I did read something about Johnny Depp really not having a good time acting on blue screen in this movie.
Oh no, poor Johnny.
But I can't... I don't know where I saw that, because I'm not seeing it now. I didn't take it down. But I do think that's... that was something I read. That particularly Johnny Depp struggled with it.
I like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Yeah, I like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Or certainly the ones I've seen.
Which ones haven't you seen?
I've seen the first 4.
Is there more than 4?
I think there's 7 or 8 of them now.
What?
Yeah, there's like... The main character, the most recent one, is Elizabeth and Will's child.
What?
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
There's loads of them. So I've seen the first 4. Well, the 4th one wasn't great compared to the other 3. But, yeah. The first one is an absolute classic, I feel like. And I love that when it came out.
There's 5.
Is there only 5? I thought there were 7. Maybe I'm thinking of in...
Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, At World's End, On Stranger Tides.
Those are the ones I've seen.
And Dead Men Tell No Tales.
And what about Salazar's Revenge?
I don't know about Salazar's Revenge because it's not listed on here.
On where? Where are you?
Wikipedia. Looking at the page of the list of the movies.
I thought there was one called Salazar's Revenge.
Okay.
Unless one of those movies was called 2 different things. Oh, okay. Dead Men Tell No Tales was released in some territories as Salazar's Revenge.
Right.
So it's the same movie. I thought they were 2 different movies. I think I'm thinking of in The Good Place, when they go to the bad place, there's a poster on the wall for Pirates of the Caribbean 7.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was thinking of. But I did think that Dead Men Tell No Tales and Salazar's Revenge were 2 different movies. Neither of which I'd seen.
Fair
but
enough.
It turns out that's only one I haven't seen then.
Cool.
Because I have seen On Stranger Tides.
They shouldn't have gone past the original trilogy, but anyway.
I mean, I don't know if they even needed to do the 3rd one. The first 2 were great. The
3rd one sort of wraps the whole story up.
I guess so. But just the first one is incredible. The first one on its own, if they had never made any others, masterpiece of cinema. The second one and third one are pretty good and fun. But like,
I hope we go in a circle. So you know how we're covering off like live action remakes?
Yeah.
I hope they do animated remakes of live action movies. That'd be fun.
Of ones that started out live action?
Yeah.
Like The Black Hole, 1979?
Yeah. They need to do a remake of that. We should just watch it.
And I guess Pirates of the Caribbean. There's so many Disney live action films. Would you have to get into like remakes of Disney Channel original movies? Like, would we have the Lizzie McGuire movie fully animated? Cheetah Girls?
I don't know.
The Look of the Irish?
Didn't they do a Loch Ness movie as well?
Probably.
Is there anything else about the movies you want to cover before we go on another tangent?
I don't know, to be honest. I feel like we've covered a lot. The original is just all over the place. Yeah. But in a fun way.
Yeah.
And it's just constantly introducing new characters. And every new character has to have a song or a story or a poem that they tell. And it's just Alice, like, being bombarded with literature constantly.
Yeah. She's like...
And then just taking it in her stride.
She's walked into like some sort of weird theatre school.
Yeah. And it's very much, I guess between the two movies, it's very much the difference between seeing something like that as a child and seeing something like that as an adult. Yeah. That like as a child you're like, well, of course this all makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're in that child brain where everything is crazy anyway. That you're like, of course there's a cat who grins and can vanish into thin air, and of course, you know, you fix a watch by putting butter on it and dipping it in tea. You know, this all makes sense. Yeah. I must follow this white rabbit in his little waistcoat. Whereas in the remake, it's very much the like, well, none of this makes sense, so it must be a dream, you know? And it's trying to make her more sensible when you don't really need to do that.
No.
It's more fun when... They should have just made it with a child Alice and had her, like, meet all these weird characters and have some, like, fun adventures.
I don't think that movie would have worked anyway.
Yeah.
I think they had, like, a vibe they were going for, and they were going to make anything fit into that round hole, regardless of the size or colour or, you know.
At least it's not as bad as Jan Svankmajer's Alice.
We still haven't watched that together.
I mean, I've seen it. It's not... The thing is that it's actually not a bad movie. Yeah. It's just very disturbing because it's live action Alice in Wonderland and the animal characters are taxidermy. Stop motion taxidermy. And that's uncomfortable to look at.
Yeah.
When the white rabbit is like a clearly dead stuffed rabbit turning its head to look at you in stop motion, jittery, you know. You're like, oh no. I showed you like a clip, like a short clip from it where she's in the house. It's a well-made movie, but there's something about it that's quite terrifying. I think it's Hungarian. Is that right? Is Jan Svankmajer Hungarian? Yeah, very frightening adaptation. I don't recommend that one for children either, to be honest. But then again, maybe that's less scary to a child than it is. You just kind of accept it. You just kind of accept it as like, oh, it's silly. It's a stuffed toy. No, it's definitely it's. I mean, well, sorry, I just had a vision of what if they had made Watership Down like that.
Yeah, no, let's not.
It's the most terrifying you could possibly make a movie. I think is if you made Watership Down that was stop motion with taxidermied rabbits. Oh, that would be awful. Oh no.
Moving on.
Don't watch Watership Down.
Have you got any other trivia for us?
Not for the 2010 one. I took a little bit of trivia for the 1951 movie. One was that it took 5 years to complete, but was in development for over 10 years before it even entered production.
Wow.
Which is crazy. It has more songs and characters than any other Disney animated film. It is a combination of the two Alice books. Yeah. Also, there was even though it already has more songs than any other Disney animated feature, there were over 30 songs cut from it that were...
How would you even fit them in?
So there was like 30 other songs written for it. Some of them got reworked into songs for other projects. Like I know Never Smile at a Crocodile from Peter Pan was originally a song from Alice in Wonderland. They changed the lyrics to fit Peter Pan.
Right.
And there's like a few others that got worked into other Disney movies because they had written, I guess, 30 extra songs for this movie that they couldn't fit in.
There's so many songs.
There's already so many songs.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I had on down here was that Walt Disney had wanted to make a live action, like a mixture one, like kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but the opposite, where it's a live action Alice, and when she goes into Wonderland, Wonderland is animated, and she's a live action girl interacting with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So they did actually do color screen tests of an actress, Mary Pickford, as Alice, for his like pitch and his proposal for doing a half live, half animated, which would have been interesting.
Yeah. Because they sort of do a little bit of that in Mary Poppins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting movie to watch.
I think the first time anyone did that was Anchors Away, which is just like a... It's also, I don't know why I know this. It's Dean Stockwell's first movie. You know Dean Stockwell?
I'm shaking my head now.
He was Al in Quantum Leap. And he was in, like, Air Force One and Blue Velvet and a whole lot of other movies. He started off as a child actor, and his first movie was Anchors Away, which is, I think it's Fred Astaire and someone, I can't remember which, like, Brat Pack actors were in it, but for some reason in the middle of it, like, Fred Astaire, I think, dances with Tom and Jerry.
I think I have seen that.
Because that's the first time, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the first time there was ever, like, animated characters put into a live-action movie.
Right.
And then obviously, like you said, Mary Poppins did it. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a huge example.
Yeah.
There's also a video game that I played that is not a very good video game that I think is called Toonville. Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
It's but you play as like Christopher Lloyd. You just play as live action Christopher Lloyd, and he's an animator who's behind on a deadline, and he falls asleep doing the animation and wakes up in the animated world. And then you get to just play as live. It's a point-and-click game where you're live-action Christopher Lloyd walking around an animated world, and it's really strange.
That sounds very strange.
You should play it. It's a weird game. Anyway, I think that's all the trivia I had. I did want to talk about budgets and box office because
Alice in Wonderland was released twice theatrically.
But it also was a huge flop.
Yeah.
So the budget for the original Alice in Wonderland was $3 million, and at box office it made $2.4 million.
I think you said Alex.
Alex in Wonderland. So I thought that's kind of interesting. That it was a flop. And then it did, obviously, because it was released in the 50s.
Yeah.
And then it had a huge resurgence in the 70s.
I wonder why.
I think it also was... I know I read this, but I didn't take it down. But I think it was the movie of all the Disney movies that have ever been released, or all the Disney animated movies that have ever been released, it was the one that took the longest amount of time to ever get a cinema re-release.
Right.
A lot of other ones got re-releases more recently more soon after the original release. Whereas I think it took like 20 years or something before it got a theatrical re-release.
I was going to ask you a question, but you don't know because you're not... Did Ireland get, like school holidays just play, like, kids' movies?
I don't remember.
Okay. Because I have, like, a weird suspicion. Because what year did Snow White come out?
1938, I think.
Yeah, so there's no way I would have seen that live at the movie theatre.
I mean, I would definitely a re-release. It was definitely being re-released in the 80s because, as we know, it features as a movie playing in cinema during its re-release theatrical run in the movie Gremlins. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was currently in cinemas at the time of Gremlins being released, which was 83. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe I saw it.
Yeah, so it would have got a theatrical re-release.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Weird memory just sparked.
The 2010 Alice in Wonderland. Have you looked at the budget and box office for this?
No.
Okay. Oh, let's do guesses then. What do you think the budget was for this movie?
$300 million.
Oh, it close. It was $200 million. What do you think it made in box office?
Like 1.2.
Higher.
Like 1.5.
Higher.
1.8.
Higher.
It actually made over its cost.
It made $6 billion.
What?
It made $6 billion.
No, that can't be right.
In box office.
But that would make... No, how? What? No.
Yeah.
No, because Avatar, the James Cameron Avatar was the most...
Yeah.
And that was $1 billion.
Hang on. Maybe I've taken this down wrong then.
It can't be $6 billion.
Wasn't that... so you're saying Avatar only made $1 billion?
Yeah. $1 billion in ticket sales.
Yeah. Let me look at this up again, because maybe
most of the highest grossing movies of all time have been James Cameron movies.
Yeah, no, it is up there with those. It genuinely is. It genuinely is. It's definitely maybe it's 1.6 billion and I took it down wrong.
No.
Oh yeah, no. Sorry, I don't know why. Why did I put a 6 there? Okay,
You're a
it's
lunatic.
just over 1 billion.
No.
Yes.
No, that's not right.
It is right.
I don't.
So it made Why did I don't know? Sorry, I've absolutely taken that down wrong, and I don't know how or why I did that. But it made 1.025 billion.
Okay, it's Gone with the Wind, and then it's Avatar, then it's Titanic, then it's Star Wars, then it's Avengers Endgame, then it's The Sound of Music, then it's E.T., then the Ten Commandments, then Doctor something I've never heard of, and then Jaws. What is this movie?
Dr. what?
You can try and pronounce that word.
Oh, Dr. Zhivago.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that's a very famous film.
Yeah.
Theatrical. Sorry, I don't know why I apologize to everyone for saying it made $6 billion.
It was like it's like higher GDP than this entire country. It's not even in the top 40, 50.
But it did make over the billion. And it was because I saw something about when it made over $1 billion and how soon it made over $1 billion, but I can't even find that now. So I don't remember what it was. But it was saying that it was like, when it hit $1 billion, it was one of only X-Men films to have done that.
Why did this movie make so much money?
I genuinely don't know. I guess people like... There you go. It was the 6th movie to ever have grossed $1 billion worldwide. The previous ones being Titanic, Return of the King, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, The Dark Knight, and Avatar. So I think it was only the 3rd movie to gross $1 billion that wasn't a sequel.
Right. I still don't understand why this movie made so much money.
Because it was Tim Burton, it was Disney, and it was Johnny Depp on the height of Pirates of the Caribbean fame.
Yeah, but all it would have taken is one person to watch it and go, that was awful, and then no one else, and they would have believed that one person.
Yeah. I don't know. People also, as we've discussed, Alice in Wonderland is huge in the zeitgeist. People really, like a lot of different subcultures have adopted Alice in Wonderland. A lot of people really identify with that whole source material and the original animated movie. So it makes sense to me. There you go. It had the record...
$6 billion.
So when it was released, its opening weekend, it broke the record for largest opening weekend in March. So specific. The record for the largest opening weekend during springtime in the Northern Hemisphere. And the largest opening weekend for a non-sequel. And it was also the highest for a non-holiday, non-summer period. But yeah, so it broke the record for opening weekend box office for a movie that was not a sequel.
Well, at least the sequel didn't make as much money.
No, probably because by then people went, we don't need to watch another one of these.
Bizarre.
Yeah. It also broke the IMAX opening weekend record. It had the largest per theater average of 2010 and the largest for a PG-rated film.
That's still bizarre to me.
Yeah. Yeah, so it really... all of its records were broken, by the way, 2 years later by the Hunger Games.
Makes sense.
But yeah, so it wasn't... I got the number wrong. It was only 1.02 billion, but it still was over $1 billion, which you were not expecting. You thought it was going to be like 100 million.
Yeah, that's what it felt like when I watched it.
Yeah.
It felt like it was stolen $100 million from me.
Yeah, that's just...
I'm speechless about how much money it made. I don't want to continue anymore.
Well, we're at the end of the podcast, so that worked out well.
I don't want to.
I'm confused about what episode is next because I was going to say our next episode is a fun episode, but that's incorrect because we've already recorded our next episode. So 2 episodes from now is a fun episode, and the next episode is something that we've already recorded because one of the films may or may not be currently in cinemas.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We had a bad day. Thank you for joining us. If you like this, share with somebody, because somebody with an Alice in Wonderland inspired tattoo, possibly.
Yeah, like my sibling.
Yeah, because word of mouth is much more powerful than sponsorships.
Oh, this is just out of nowhere, but because I was mentioning my siblings' tattoos, I remembered that when I was watching Alice in Wonderland, I was like, the 1951, I went, oh, I don't know how much I remember of this from this movie is from this movie, or how much is just from playing Kingdom Hearts. Because let me tell you, Alice in Wonderland and the Wonderland like world from the 1951 movie makes an incredible video game level.
I bet it does.
Like, absolutely. And because Kingdom Hearts is all about, a mixture of actual Disney characters and then some Final Fantasy characters, and then also like these original villains based on the world.
Yeah.
You can have there is like incredible villains in that Alice in Wonderland world, and it's one of the first ones in it. Play Kingdom Hearts. I've only played the first one fully through, and the second one I have played the beginning of it. For people who know Kingdom Hearts, I've only played the second one as Roxas, who I believe like very shortly into the game, like a very small percentage into the game, is no longer a character.
I have no idea.
So that's how little of it I've played. But very enjoyable, very well designed games, and it with really interesting storylines that are maybe a little convoluted, but worth getting into maybe.
And you only have to play like 17 of them and a bunch of like mobile only games to understand the story.
Well, they re-released a whole load of them as combo games for the PlayStation. I think PS4, maybe it was PS3, where you play like Kingdom Hearts 1 plus PS versions of the Game Boy games. And then like there was, I think, only one game, maybe two games that they didn't make into games for that platform, but instead made it just like a little movie, like one big cutscene to show you what you missed in that game by not having a very specific console.
Hello, we made 120 hours of content. Here's the 20 minutes of story that goes along with it.
Yeah, literally. I mean, that's also what they do with the main games, because you had Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 3, and in between them you had all these different little games. So like the opening cutscene of the Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3 is basically giving you a recap of what you missed in the other games if you didn't play them. but in the form of a music video for Utada Hikaru, and they are incredible. So that's the main thing I like about Kingdom Hearts games. I get excited if a new Kingdom Hearts game is coming out because I want to listen to the music Utada Hikaru has produced for it, because they're incredible. Anyway.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Kingdom Hearts fan podcast. You can go to our website, ittakes2.co.nz, to follow us on social media and do all the things you normally do on websites. I've been your host.
I genuinely thought you were going to say I've been Patrick. And I've been Paul.
Yeah.
Anyway, for some reason, I was going to say, and thank you for joining us on our National Treasure Hunt, which is an entirely different podcast. I'm losing my mind. But thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
Very odd for the episode of losing my mind.
Yes. We're all mad here.
Bye.
Bye.
Have some tea.